Okay, so I'm going to just pick out some highlights and make some comments about an article that appeared on the Lion's Roar online site. I normally don't look at these sites, but somebody sent us this and said, "What do you think about it?" I think they probably knew what I thought about it. But it's about psychedelics in Dharma centers nowadays. And the byline is about how some Buddhist teachers are not only turning towards psychedelics in their practice, but also making it a part of their teaching. Okay, so before I go through all this, okay, so as the article points out, there's been some medical research that shows that psychedelics can be very useful in treating certain mental illnesses. Okay, they haven't been approved for that, but there's research going in that direction. And some of these teachers affirm that and say that's been really true. And then you have I got an email from somebody yesterday who watched the BBC from a few days ago when I mentioned we were going to talk about this. And he made it was quite a sincere email, and he made some very interesting comments about this. And he said, psychedelics led me to the Dharma, and eventually I believe the Dharma will lead me out of psychedelics. Okay, so he said, 12 months ago, I took psychedelics, mushrooms, in a desperate last-ditch attempt to alleviate my brutal, life-threatening bipolar disorder. Depression had haunted me since adolescence, and by my mid-30s, I had a number of suicide attempts in my history. Some very exciting research currently suggests psychedelic therapy as a very promising treatment. I decided in desperation to go it alone. Okay, so he wasn't doing this under the care of a psychiatrist or a doctor or anybody. So he was fortunate, yeah. And he said, what I experienced was beyond words. Although this being the 20th century, I blogged about it. So an ocean of compassion, infinite love, and a total erasure of the fiction we call the self. My thoughts remained clear, and I didn't feel intoxicated as such. Depression is a very selfish state. The ego is tight and wound up and brittle. To have it loosened up like this and then dissolved is liberation. So he benefited from this. So having some knowledge of the Dharma after the experience, I began to much more seriously read Buddhist texts and listen to Buddhist talks. So that's what he means by the psychedelics brought him to the Dharma. He says, now I take psychedelics about once every 3 months to ensure the depression stays away. But the combination of psychedelics and developing a Dharma practice have been instrumental in curing me of the bipolar, which stalked my life for over 20 years. Without them, I would still be ill. I believe I needed the psychedelics as my mind was so riven with this pathological ego state. The same way one might need a crutch while one's leg is in a cast. But the key term here is show the way. I believe I will no longer be using these drugs in a year's time, certainly not in 2 years. I was ill and I am recovering, but I am growing ever more confident in my Dharma practice and more at peace. I will not need this crutch for much longer. But even having had the experience I had, I can't imagine ever using them as part of Dharma practice, and certainly never, ever at a center or in a communal practice. They open the mind and can break down walls of delusion, but they also can have you seeing pink rabbits and giggling at nonsense. Also, I suspect that even if the egoless state of boundless compassion is comparable to what Buddhist teachings are speaking of, it is probably better to climb the mountain yourself than to take the chairlift. Okay, so there's a couple of different threads in here. Yeah, so his experience was that he took the psychedelics and it really helped him with his, his bipolar. So that's wonderful that that helped him. I personally would not have recommended that somebody go it alone as he did, because there's such a danger of people having bad trips. And so I think if you have therapists who are trained to use, psychedelics as a medicine for a disease, and that people take it under their guidance, and it's a qualified therapist. If the person starts going on a bad trip, so, they can help, then perhaps there's some basis for that. It definitely helped this person. I can't negate his personal experience. That is the best treatment for everybody with bipolar or depression? No. Okay, in his particular situation, it worked. Okay, but again, I think important to have it done, if you choose to do that, under the guidance of somebody who knows what they're doing. And to recognize that this is a medical treatment. This is not Dharma practice. And to me, this is the key. In our Dharma practice, or in our lives, there may be many things that aid our Dharma practice that are not Dharma practice. Taking vitamins aids our Dharma practice. It keeps our body healthy. Yeah, but we don't say that taking vitamins is Dharma practice. Okay, so if this becomes a viable psychological treatment, it's a medical thing for people who can benefit from that, but it is not Dharma practice. Okay, so I think that's one point to be very, very clear about. Bhikkhu Bodhi, when I asked him if he had read this article, he said yes, and he said, like many people in his generation back in the 60s, taking psychedelics made you more interested in the mind, and like with this person, led us to the Dharma, And I know in my case, I had some great insights, spiritual type of insights, but I wouldn't call that spiritual practice. Okay. But Bhikkhu Bodhi also commented, because we're kind of from the same generation, so we did all this stuff, that now, having met the Dharma, he doesn't see how anybody having met the Dharma would want to take psychedelics. And I completely agree with that, yeah. And so my thought about this, and I haven't even read you what other people are saying, I intend to do that, but my thought about it is, okay, if you want to do that, do it, but don't call it Dharma practice, don't associate it with Dharma practice, don't do it in a Dharma center, do it as a psychological therapy, and that's it, okay? Because I wonder sometimes what it is. I've seen certain Dharma groups in America, and every few years there's some new exciting thing that they want to add to their Dharma practice. So many years ago it was, Dharma isn't sufficient, so we all need to do therapy. Yeah, because therapy breaks down things that spiritual practice doesn't. And again, for me, yes, that's true. But therapy is not Dharma practice. Therapy is therapy, and Dharma practice is Dharma practice, and their perspectives, there's so many differences between them. Don't mix them up. Then, sometimes people say, yeah, we've been practicing, but then, this other teacher who teaches this other method, we're all going to follow him, and then they do that for a short while. And then a few more years go by, and then it's, now it's psychedelics. Yeah. But the psychedelics appear to be the younger Dharma teachers, not the ones of my generation who were advocating this. But still, it makes me wonder. I just have a few questions, put it this way. Is the wish to take psychedelics, yes, they say it opens you up and you experience egoless states, but is part of the motivation behind it, one, to take a shortcut, or two, to have some kind of exciting peak experience that makes you feel like you're getting somewhere in your practice? Yeah. And I think either of those motivations could be somehow mixed in with it. And the fact of the matter, I believe, is that, like this guy said, it's better to climb the mountain yourself than to take the chairlift. So you may have some kind of fantastic experience on drugs. But does it really have long-lasting impact? Whereas if you train your mind in the method the Buddha taught, then first of all, you're going to be assured, if you check with a reliable teacher and you check with the descriptions in the text, then you can be sure that you're having reliable realizations. When you take psychedelics, you cannot be assured that what you experience is a spiritual realization. It's a fantastic experience, but is that a spiritual realization? Okay, because our minds can have all sorts of fantastic experiences, and we create them, yeah? And, but are they actual spiritual realizations that have a lasting effect and can transform our mind in a way that makes us a better human being? Because I see spiritual goals not just as one permanent, exhilarating spiritual high. To me, that's not what my goal is. Yeah, because if that were my goal, then maybe I just take psychedelics all the time, just have one lasting, psycho-spiritual high. But part of my Dharma practice is I wanted to learn to become a human being who can benefit others. Yeah. Now, sure, attaining the dhyanas, realizing emptiness, having experiences of bodhicitta, and so on, I imagine those are quite profound. I haven't experienced any of them, but I imagine they're quite profound and really mind-altering, and that you could probably feel, well, they say with the dhyanas, incredible bliss and equanimity and such. But, is that the only thing I want out of my spiritual practice, is to have these feelings myself? I guess that's what I'm asking, Is it just that I want to feel something or become something? For me, it's much more I want to be able to do something, and spiritual practice will give me the abilities to be able to do that. Yeah, because I don't actually want to stay just blissed out in something. I want to be able to benefit sentient beings. So, so maybe our goals are different if you're looking, if you're trying to make us that. Anyway, there's a lot of questions to ask here about motivation, about competency in leading people in these. You know, I think what I'll do is stop now and then tomorrow maybe go through the article and read some of the things that it says, so you have a better idea of what people are thinking and what they're doing. Yeah.
Because I was oriented that way, I think partly from the generation I was in, but I think it's almost bigger than that in the sense of, I think it's more than just our generation. I think that's not probably unusual at all for people to look for highs, runner's highs, or whatever it is. And also the mentality we have of fast things happening quickly.
Yes.
Just take an antibiotic and you're fine mentality that we've grown up with. So I appreciate your bringing the point to really what is the purpose of our practice and helping us to, get more clear on that.
Yeah. Yeah, because the purpose of our practice isn't just, moments of bliss. We're looking for enduring change. And that means creating many, many causes. Okay? You're not going to get a whole continuity of a realization without a whole continuity of causes, So we need to do that work. Yeah.
When I was studying Pramanavartika last year, we were on a section about how the mind influences the body and the body influences the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And this very question came up, is that when you're taking drugs, is it actually a physiological influence on the brain? And if you're trying to transform your mind, what does taking something that has a physiological effect? Yes, it has, because the mind influences the body and the body influences the mind, and it's really hard to separate those out. But it's a really serious question, what actually gets transformed?
So some people might find these drugs helpful, like the man was talking about. Some people that are having psychological difficulties could find these to be very dangerous.
Yes.
There's a book called The Eden Express by Mark Vonnegut. It's Kurt Vonnegut Jr.'s son. He has schizophrenia. He used to smoke pot. He was of the generation you're talking about. He was up at some commune or something doing mescaline, and he ended up on a trip that lasted months. And he was very messed up.
Yeah.
And it's amazing he was able to write that book.
Yeah. And we've heard of many cases here, actually, of being asked to pray for people who've gone on bad trips and then gotten physically injured by their activities when they were high, or somebody else we know whose marriage broke up because of it. One partner became very attached to this. So yeah, it's not risk-free.
And also the words that come to my mind are impatience and discontent about using the... I drank a long time. I used to drink and smoke. And at some point I realized I was looking for something and it wasn't filling it. I felt like, there's these little play school toys where you put the three-sided block through the triangle hole. And I felt like I keep trying to put the round one through the triangle one. I mean, it's not, I'm going to this thing over and over for something it's not giving me.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people have tried psychedelics because we are seeking something. But having found the Dharma, I'm with Bhikkhu Bodhi on that one. I don't see why you would want to try and do something. To me, it's an intoxicant. I know some of the people in the article might say that they don't think it's an intoxicant.
Yeah.
But I appreciate having a clear mind, and it's hard enough to clear the mind. And I'm probably dealing with karma from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that you brought up the question of, is it an intoxicant, and what about the precepts? And that comes up in the article, But I will say now, to me, it's definitely an intoxicant. Psychedelics definitely intoxicant, and it's definitely breaking the precepts from my view. If it were a Dharma path, the Buddha would have had all of his disciples sitting around him tripping. I'm sure they had plenty of psychedelics back in ancient India. Yeah. But why was it that the Buddha didn't have his disciples do that?
And wasn't it Lama Yeshe who said, you don't need psychedelics here, you're tripping already?
Right, yeah, so I'll say that. Yeah, because, my generation, we went up to Kapan and lots of times asking Lama, Lama, do you want to take, some acid, or what do you think about meditating when you're high? And he said to us, you're already hallucinating. Yeah, why do you want to take more stuff? Meaning that, because we're grasping at true existence, what we're seeing is like a hallucination. Things don't exist the way they appear to our mind, but we grasp onto them like they do. Yeah. So why would you want to take more stuff? Yeah. People would look so shocked when Lama said that, and kind of disappointed, like, wow, wouldn't it have been great to go on a trip with Lama? Wow, imagine that. Yeah.
So also, like, it catches up with what Moshuni is saying, when we don't train our mind, so when we prepare for death, or if we are in the process of dying, we are not able to use our mind. I was thinking about one lady, it's not related to drugs, but she was used to have massage to ease her body, and then one nun asked her, I'm offering you to come and help you going through this process, and she said, no, I want to have a massage. Not being able to rely on the Dharma when the time of death is coming, but then always relying on something outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this is an interesting thing in how it figures with modern science's emphasis on, everything is physical and change the brain. Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting.